for joining us. We have a fun evening planned for you guys. We appreciate you being here.
I know. AI Live.
Woohoo! You know what? We never would have dreamed that through COVID and through having to flip our switch and go online right away, which thank goodness we were ready to go online. We were ready to flip the switch anyway, but you guys, we started this whole s'more time with Gideon and Lori and our s'mores and our Baileys, and it's kind of evolved into this AI Live, which has always been a really informative hour of us to share things with you, new treatments, new technologies, and just interesting stuff for you guys. So
different
thank you.
Things in the industry that we feel are important. You know, if there are topics that you guys want us to eventually cover, not so, you know, we'll brush a little bit about education, brush a little bit about maybe topics that can be controversial.
Yeah. Not us.
No. That's what we're here for, you know, to
Never.
bring up things that people don't want to really talk about.
Everybody wants more dark side of aesthetics. we have fun. But thank you for tuning in. And this is our gift to you guys, to just kind of have something you don't have to pay for, which is rare in aesthetics, but something that we can share with you. So thank you for joining us.
All right.
We have some catch up to do.
Okay,
so what have you done the last month since our last AI Live?
Oh my gosh, what was last month? February. Oh, I'm working on projects with AI Wellness, if you guys have not seen on my Instagram. So doing a lot of things with regards to health, wellness things, because that's kind of where, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to venture into those things, you know, learning more about infrared lights and PEMF, exosomes and stem cells into the next level, NK cells, dendritic cells, immunomodulation, ozone therapy, peptides, blah, blah, blah. You name it. I'm trying to learn and absorb as much as possible.
So much.
And it's so much to learn. I feel like the stupid one on the block again, which is great because that's how you should feel. If you you know, the verb and the adage is, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. That would be me right now, and that was super fun, and I'm excited to really continue that journey of learning about health and wellness. And then where else? Miami. I was in Miami on Friday. Helping MERS teach a cadaver course, so that was kind of fun, and we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see. Lots of fun things. You're all over the place.
I know. I was in Florida the week before that. The week before you, I was in Tampa, Florida, and actually did quite a few trainings for Galderma and some dinner lectures and stuff, which were awesome. Galderma is kind of changing their platform, so we do a little bit more large audience kind of lectures and then hands-on. So it's really kind of cool. It's called, there's different ones. Inspire is the ones that I did. So pretty cool. And then I finally got to meet with a good friend of mine who lives in Tampa, Kristen Hanian, who's a nurse practitioner out there. And she is into the peptides. This girl is brilliant. She has reversed her entire biological clock with peptides and stuff. Yeah. So really, really cool. And I was able to be on her husband's podcast, Keith Hanian, and he's got a Pro to Pro podcast. If you guys can sign up for that, it's pretty cool. So it's looking at professional to professional and podcast, different things in communication, and really good information on his podcast. I like it a lot. So anyway, did that, and then I was in Dallas Friday and Saturday, and today is Tuesday. What's today? So I was in Dallas doing trainings there, and get this. So we're at Fort Worth. We're at a beautiful clinic that was just darling. A guy named Ryan owned this. It's called Bougie Aesthetics. And we're at this beautiful clinic. I walk up, and the clinic is darling, like dark wood floors, leather couches, have bottles of like vodka and gin and whatever, like whiskey sitting around. It was like very masculine. It was really a cool clinic. But come to find out, Ryan and I worked on General Hospital years ago together. He played a paramedic. I always played a nurse. So we were in the same scenes years ago. He was on the show 9 years. I was on the show 19 years, but our paths crossed. So we sat there and rehashed about people that we knew together. And it was what a small world. He's a nurse practitioner in Fort Worth now with Bougie Aesthetics.
That's
really
awesome.
Cool. Really cool.
The world is very small.
Right?
The world is very, very small.
I love it. I got the biggest kick out of that. Anyway, so we are tonight
talking about mental health.
and aesthetics.
So ultimately, this is one of the bigger topics. I mean, it's not just only in aesthetics. I mean, I look at from a family medicine background and just talking to my peers and just looking from the health wellness side, there's so much to mental health. And mental health is probably going to, and if not is, the biggest epidemic and pandemic we really have in the US currently. It really is. Look at how many people have depression, look at how many people have psychiatric issues, and the loneliness factor just because of what COVID did. It really has snowballed into this huge mental capacity. And so, I think that mental health is something that we in aesthetics can actually improve and help out. There's actually research to show certain things that we do help in that mental capacity. But ultimately, mental health, as far as aesthetics, there's a balance. There's the ethical line of drawing where do you lead your patient down in this mental health? How do you address this aspect of it to promote better ethical things and strategies on how we're going to actually talk to the patient with regards to that. So more than
super
jump
important
into it. Disclosures. So
there is an intersection of mental health and aesthetics. We see this oftentimes. And when we're looking at just mental health, we're focusing on the well-being and emotional state of the patient, but not that we aren't doing that with aesthetics also.
Right.
It encompasses their thoughts, feelings, and projections. We're looking at their coping mechanisms, their stress management, their cognitive function. We're looking at all of that in mental health. In aesthetics, the focus is a little bit more on the physical appearance and enhancing beauty. But if we do that, doesn't that help their self-esteem and self-confidence also? So that is something that's going to be underlying with that mental health component. It encompasses aesthetic procedures, cosmetic procedures, body enhancements, whatever we do in aesthetics that we align with a lot of different type of cultural beauty standards and self-image issues. Whatever we do in aesthetics really underpins the mental health and really has something to do with someone's perception of themselves.
No, very, very true. I mean, I think this is, when I first got started in this field, I mean, ultimately it was one of those things back in 2003 that I got introduced to it. And opening up the first clinic that, I did it because my friends were really trying to, they're just talking about how, and this is probably more on my aspect of it, how we can really help the skin and help Botox and lasers were probably bigger back then. And it was more along the lines of just, for myself, a little selfish thing of improving my own skin quality. I had bad acne, constantly breaking out, and I really couldn't do anything about it. And so ultimately, part of me opening it up with my friends was, you know what, I can improve myself in that sense. And you guys who didn't grow up with acne, I think the realization, having grown up from being a child and teenager and having lots of acne and growing up, you do develop a self-awareness and a self-loathing type of a feeling, because you constantly make it fun of, ultimately. And so that mental health starts at that young age where you're trying to establish yourself and focus yourself. And so part of that, I definitely saw that change as I got into the field. And you realize what a big change you can make, especially when we dealt with younger kids with acne, things that personally was what I really had a heart for, because I personally went through that. And you watch these kids change, and you watch them start talking to you, when you watch them start to engage into you, and you now start to feel as though they're opening up to that, becoming that flower that they were intended to be.
You're reminding me of a young man I had at the Rancho Clinic years ago.
Oh, yes.
When he came in, his head was low, and he wouldn't make eye contact, and he had really, really bad acne.
Yeah.
And after we did a few sessions on him, it really started to improve.
Yeah.
And he would walk into the clinic with his head up, and he would make eye contact with us. He was still shy, but you could tell, we all talked about this, you could tell that it was changing his entire persona. He was getting more self-confident, and he was kind of coming out of his shell a little bit. And we really realized that this is not all vanity.
No.
What we're doing is really instilling a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem in people. So it really made it apparent back then, that was like 2008,
Right.
that what we're doing is not all vanity. It's not.
You know, you can call it vanity, you can call it self-confidence. I mean, we'll get more into that in that talk on that aspect of it. But I mean, it really is, you know, it's mental health is something you can't personally understand because you're not going through it yourself and understanding how that person, what they're going through. And so anything that you can do to help build that confidence is important. And so, you know, this is where we start to argue the ethical lines of aesthetic medicine on that aspect of it. And so, you know, kind of what are the potential psychological implications of it? You know, positive responses, as we're talking about it, satisfaction, increased confidence, you know, reduce anxiety from their perceived physical flaws. You know, there are some OCD patients, I get that just hyper focus on it until you take care of it. And once you take care of it, they're kind of a slightly different person.
No, they just hyper focus on something else.
You do get those, but I have the ones that are like, oh wow, that really took away a lot of little things.
Yeah.
And their improvement in their self-esteem, their body image definitely changes for themselves. And so I think that, you know, you're never, and I don't think it's our right to judge what that patient's insecurities are. You know, however, you know, there are negative responses to it. People who, you know, you let them do too much and it becomes overly done, and, you know, you let them run down that route of overly injecting or overly doing something that it's not healthy for them. They rely on that consistently. It's like a drug addiction in a sense. Or you get the people who are overthinking it, overanalyzing it, and constantly just picking at themselves. Unrealistic expectations. They come in and then they want you to wave a magic wand and make them beautiful, like yesterday. You know, the high expectations. And then, of course, comparing themselves to other people. You know, those are the kind of the negative things that we start to get into it. And it's our job to kind of help balance that back out to a more positive response instead of negative response, and spinning the conversation for these type of patients to really talk about it in a more positive way.
Yeah, I think a lot of those negative responses can be probably prevented with education.
Yeah.
So when you're looking a lot of like expectations are not met, or they're too picky, or they want to look like somebody else, when you're looking at a lot of those, a lot of that can be really prevented with education. Making sure that when we talk to our patient, the light bulb goes on. Okay, we want to make sure that we have active communication. When we're saying something and explaining, like, here's what one syringe can do, and they're like, everything? We're like, no. We have to make sure that they're understanding the message we're sending.
Yeah.
And when they don't is when we get in trouble. When we have a problem on our hands and we've got to deal with someone that's not happy. So I think a lot of times when we see red flags in consults, we see people that haven't been happy anywhere they've gone. You know, we're going to talk about some of this stuff, but pay attention to that patient. Focus on that patient, what they're saying, how they're acting, their nonverbal and their verbal communication, because that's going to help you understand what they get and what they don't get.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the cool things, and I love this, is Botox. Botox, we all do it, but people don't realize there's actually a lot of research with regards to Botox and decreasing depression. There are thousands of studies, but this study analyzed 40,000 individuals following Botox treatment, and patients with Botox reported experiencing 40 to 88% less depression. And what that means is patients had less irritability, anxiety, depression than those that did not receive any cosmetic treatments. I mean, this is one of those interesting things. You think it's vanity, you think it's blah, 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 whatever the impression is. But really, you know, if you really think about it, how many people do we know that suffer depression? And it really is, I mean, in other studies, have seen major depressive disorders improve by 50%. 50% of the population of that study group actually improved from getting Botox. And so this is one of those interesting things that we don't qualify because we're in the aesthetic field and it's all about beauty and that aspect of it. But imagine being able to make and help your patients be a little bit less depressed. I tell my patients this, especially the ones that are a little bit more hesitant about it. They really, really don't understand it enough. I just say it relaxes a little bit of that frowning aspect of it. And you imagine when you actually frown less into this area, there is a potential feedback on your brain because you're not constantly holding this angry face, that you're actually in a more relaxed state, that you're actually in a more happier state. Okay? And so secondarily, if this line starts to disappear, you have more openness into this area, people approach you in a very different aspect of it. If you ever looked at people and you're looking at them and they're scowling at you, you're going to be a little bit more hesitant about approaching them.
No.
And so you actually interact in a very different way. That energy you give off, and this goes into health wellness because I'm a really big believer now in the energies and the frequencies that we all give off. You can feel when a person is very tense in the room, it kind of invades your space a little bit. As they soften out, they open up, that energy flow is very, very different with regards to that. And so ultimately it's one of those things that you don't think about, but that interaction and just that face-to-face contact where you're now not approached by somebody that has this hesitation, they're more open, they're happier to talk to you. That in and of itself lends to a better conversation, so less irritability, less anxiety, all of that stuff starts to decrease. And when you're constantly getting this positive feedback, it feeds back into a different way than when you're scowling and when you're looking mad.
I'll tell you personally, the first time because I always say I had a line for each kid I had. That's 2 lines right here. 11. And I remember years ago when I got my first Botox and it started working and the line started going away. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and going, oh, wow, I don't look mad anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like finally the outside matched the inside.
Yep.
Because I wasn't mad, but I looked like mad. And it was like, I don't look mad anymore. Yeah. So I totally understand that. Mm-hmm. You just feel like you match. Like the outside matches the inside.
And people don't realize those little nuances really do affect how you're perceived and how you give off your perception. Mm-hmm. And because we are relational in that aspect of it, it really does lend to the psychology and the mental capacity and how we interact with each other. Yeah. And that is something that nobody really talks about. But you really do see, I mean, why are people in the aesthetic community, for the most part, pretty happy people?
Because we can't get mad at each other.
We can't get mad at each other. And now that we're doing the one on the bottom, we
can't frown either.
Frown anymore.
That's hilarious.
But that is one of the newer things. I mean, I hope that they'll start doing studies like the DAOs. If you knock out the DAOs and you can't get this grumpy face, I call it the RBF face. And that's how I convince all my patients to start doing this area. Is like, you don't want that RBF face. You don't want to be like, mine's is wearing out. You don't want to be able to do this because that's what grandma and grandpa walk around, because we know that these muscles weaken out with age. That smiling, these lifting muscles of the upper lip weaken out with age, right? And so if you imagine there's a tug of war going on around any circular muscle. Do you realize that? Circular muscle, there's a tug of war going on both up and down. And somebody's going to lose the tug of war. And if you're going down all the time and we're talking and you're just doing all of this motion, you don't realize how that motion is perceived by the other person you're talking to.
Yeah.
All these frowning, all these,
Yeah.
you don't realize how just one look, one glance, one stare can change how a person perceives you in that aspect of it. And so ultimately, I would love somebody, maybe we'll have to go and find somebody to do another Botox study on injecting into the DAOs.
Yeah.
But that RBF face can really weaken out and lessen out because you're not pulling down on the oral constant anymore.
You don't feel it sad.
You don't feel this sad face. So that's another thing.
Anybody's out there wanting to do a dissertation. That's the subject for you. All
Um,
right. So at the bottom is a couple of people were asking for the article. If you look at the bottom of this slide, it is
research
both
conducted by
in scientific reports and it's in, I think it's published in the School of Psychology.
Yeah. I think if you actually just Google Botox and depression,
Yeah.
you'll see there actually are a bunch of studies out there on Botox and depression.
Kelly, uppers and downers. Uppers and downers. I love
That
it.
is true.
That's cute.
This is all uppers.
So keep in mind, we have you guys type in your questions and your comments to us because we can see them over here.
Yeah.
So we like to keep this live and interactive. And thank you, Kelly and Brenda and Mitt and everybody who's making comments. Thank you guys. All right, so impact of body image on mental health, huge. Like you heard Gideon just talking about, it influences your self-esteem. It gives you a potential for having dissatisfaction with whatever it is. You could be face, could be your waist, could be big feet. I don't care, whatever. It could be whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It has a overall impact on your emotional well-being, and we talked about this, where you can get very depressed and very quiet and very introverted, depending on what issue's going on, like this young man that I remember treating years ago, a teenager, very introverted, and it can really affect those formative years.
Mm-hmm.
It can make you depressed and anxious. It can have you be a little bit, like I said, introverted. You don't want to go out socially. You don't want to converse with people because you feel like they're looking at all your zits on your face. And you didn't have that bad of acne, but you had some that kept
I mean, I
kept
remember
going
getting
on.
called Rudolph through high school.
Aw.
Because I kept getting one on the tip of my nose.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I was breaking out constantly,
Yeah.
ultimately.
But we started doing spectra lasers
yes,
on you.
my favorite laser in
The
the whole wide world.
spectra
It's
lasers.
my
Awesome.
It would be my take with me
Right.
wherever I go. If I retire, that machine is coming with me.
Yeah, you do it like almost every 2 weeks or a month.
If I can, at least
Possibly.
once a month.
Yeah.
I think it's changed my skin quality so much. And then adding the microneedling with the
And he
exosomes.
doesn't even wash, use sunblock, or no, nothing. So that laser decreased oil, killed off bacteria. It's been awesome. So
I mean, yeah. Sunblock just breaks out my skin. So we'll just do the lasers to repair the skin.
right.
Kelly, the strangest experience. I had a client who would not look in the mirror. Luckily, I noted her not looking and cropped her face out of a photo to show her the markings, education. She shrieked and raised her hand and said, I don't want to see my face. She was beautiful. I acted as though nothing happened, but I felt concerned. I'm not sure there's appropriate way to
Yeah.
respond. I used... I said
Yeah.
less, use therapeutic touch, did not help me much. That goes into a lot more of the BDD.
And we'll kind of go into that, but that was
body dysmorphic
disorder. You're
disorders
looking
and
at
stuff
somebody
like
with
that.
BDD. So I always say there's 2 red flags: somebody who won't look in the mirror and somebody who you can't take the mirror away from.
You have both.
So there's 2 red flags.
Lori has both types of face.
Right. I do. I've had both. And also, like Kelly, you said she was beautiful. The one patient I'm thinking of too, beautiful girl who really didn't need much at all, but would not look in the mirror, would not look at herself. And it's tough. It's tough to deal with that because it turns into a therapy session for us. And we're not
for
trained to
sure.
be psychologists.
No.
We try so hard
We need
to
to
listen.
probably create
I need to go through some classes to listen. We try to listen and help them understand certain things, but it's tough sometimes. It goes deeper than what we.
a lot of
are
it,
able to treat.
unfortunately, a lot of it goes deeper
Yeah.
into their environment and their social stressors that go along with
Right.
it. You never know what kind of childhood traumas they grew up with and things like that. They may look beautiful now, but that's something that maybe they were the ugly duckling in, elementary, high school, and they've become this beautiful swan, but they still see the ugly duckling in the aspect of it is a mental
Right.
game for them.
There's probably something that's happened. Like my patient, her husband didn't find her attractive. She's beautiful, and just kind of ripped on her all the time, and didn't just her looks. And she's lovely and sweet and beautiful. And they internalize that. So I think there's probably something in these people's lives that's happened that's made them kind of want to just hide in a way and not want to look at themselves.
Right.
So Kelly, thanks for sharing. Now you know that a lot of us have had that same type of patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
All right. So ethical decision making, these can be hard because you need to make sure that you're getting a good informed consent for these type of patients, so that they know what they're getting and why they're getting it, and having realistic expectations. I think that's one of the hardest things to get across to your patients. I have patients where I put a tiny little amount and they're like, oh my God, look how it's changed my face. I'm like, I barely even see anything change.
Yeah.
And it does get down to a psychological aspect to it, which is, why we're talking about this, because there is a lot of different mental disorders on the whole spectrum of things with regards to it. Aligning patient goals with ethical treatment options, definitely for sure. And then making sure your patient is safe about what they're doing and for their own well-being, and their own mental health on the aspect of it.
Yeah.
Holding up professional integrity, ethical guidelines for sure with regards to that, and then respecting your patient's autonomy and decision making. I think that is important. I think it's to me, it's always about education, making sure they understand why I'm doing something, and then to let them choose from their own education. I always tell them, I'm here to educate you so you can make the best decisions.
Right.
From there, it's up to you. There's no right or wrong. In life, there is never a right or wrong. As long as you're happy with your decision, that's it.
And you know what? I always tell everybody, we can fix the outside, but we can't fix the inside.
Yep.
And when you run across somebody who doesn't like themselves, they are just unhappy. They probably won't be happy with anything you do, be it little or large. And no matter how good you think something looks, they still might not be happy because we can't fix the inside.
Yeah.
So I just want to mention to you guys to just put your antenna up and watch for that and kind of listen to these patients, because we want to help them feel better about themselves, but that's got to link up with the inside too. And we've got to assess that. I think it's really important.
And I think I get a lot of patients who come in just to see me, just to chit chat.
Yes.
I'm a chit chatter.
No.
I would totally. My staff hates me. They're always like, he's always running late, and it's like, it's not because I'm slow at my treatment. I actually inject very, very fast, probably too fast for what it is. But I'm there really chit chatting with my patients and getting into their lives and making that change, because I think it's important. You guys are going to make the biggest impact. I think that's why I got into medicine. Is I wanted to make an impact. Family medicine was where I chose because I thought it was going to allow me to make these bigger changes. But ultimately, medicine changed, and you don't get to spend the time. It's 7 minutes or 5 minutes now of what's your issue, what's your problem, here's a prescription, go. And that's the sad part, and hopefully that will start to change. I think the system honestly has to kind of fail before it changes, but we're in the best position to help our patients with all of these issues. Their mental capacity, this is what medicine is about. You're there to help them with that aspect of it. And part of it is what you do as a treatment, because you can get them beautiful results and stuff like that. But really, a lot of it is for them to be able to talk to somebody without being judged, without being, and being heard. Felt like they're being heard, because they may not feel as though they have a voice in their own environment and in their community. And when they sit down with you or they talk to you, it's allowing them to actually heal. And that's what our goal is in all of this stuff. It's healing from an aspect of the mental capacity of what we can do for them, but then also the beauty aspect of it, what's holding them back as far as what they think is the disconnect. And you get this, especially in my older patients, the disconnect that you have with regards to how you look currently with how you actually feel on the inside. I now understand that as I'm getting older and you're going, crap, that wrinkle, the saggy skin, it doesn't align with me feeling like I'm 20 and I can conquer the world still.
It just doesn't match. I hear you.
It doesn't matter. And you know, the closer we can get to that, and you know, the whole aspect of it, I think this for me is why, you know, I think I do well with my aesthetic aspect of it. Now I'm looking at the inside, and you know, I'm a big believer gut health and all of that stuff, and so I'm trying to combine it all now into all of this and really, really put it all together into not just well or beauty, it's beauty, health, wellness on that whole aspect of it. So
Trish, you made a great comment here. It says as aesthetic providers we can hold a lot of power to impact self-esteem on our patients, both good and bad. That is so true. That is so true. And we need to be really careful about what we say and how we say it. When I do my consults, I'm very careful about saying much that I would recommend on someone. I ask them a lot of questions. It's all medical first. Then I ask them, what bothers you? What brought you here?
Yep.
Why are you here? What brought you here?
Yep.
I like to focus on what bothers them.
Yep.
Unless I get a green light from them, I'm not going to point out lots of stuff.
No.
If they're saying, tell me what I need, then I might, if it's because they seem like they're open to it. But if we start pointing out like you need this and this and this and this and this and this, and they came in for a brown spot on their cheek, they're going to go home and they are going to stare at everything bad thing that we just pointed out. Mm-hmm. So is that going to help their self-esteem and self-confidence, or is that going to tear it down? It's going to tear it down. So we need to be careful. We need to educate. We need to suggest if they need a suggestion, but they need to be ready to hear it too.
Yes.
So that's part of, we have that time to communicate with our patients during our consult. Please make your consults plenty long. Ours are 45 minutes. How long are yours? Half hour?
Well, my consultant does it. But yes.
Okay, he's got a consultant.
I have a consultant, but while I'm educating on why they're doing the treatment, if I shift the plan, I tell them consultant was doing their job, they are correct. This is where I do see it, but ultimately for where you are, I would change it up. And I think a lot of explanation goes into you guys really getting educated about anatomy, about the aging process. If you break it back down into education of the science and all of that, now becomes something where you're not pointing features out on them. They will come back to you and point out features that they feel are resonating with them.
Yes.
And that's what Lori's saying. It's not that you don't want to tell them. We're all aging, and we're all going to have our things. Lori has things she picks about, and I'm like, no, you should do this instead. But we're honest with each other. But ultimately, you don't have that rapport just yet. Like my patients, I do have that rapport. Majority of them come in is like, I just want to talk to him. He'll figure out what I need, and we'll do that. And I still go back to, hey, you're still coming in here. You're still having something that bothers you. What's going on? What do you see? What's the overall impression that we're going? And it goes into a whole aspect of it. I like to look at the face as a holistic aspect of it instead of, I listen to nasolabial, this. You know, a lot of people just say, I just look tired. I look frumpy. And then it goes into, well, what part of that makes you feel as though you look frumpy? You know, guiding that aspect of it, guiding that talk really helps you understand where the patient's coming from and what they're seeing and how you can help change that aspect of it.
I didn't know if we'd have this much to talk about. We have a lot of input.
Oops.
Okay, we might go over a little bit, you guys, possibly. We'll try not to. So we were talking about education earlier. Education is paramount. We need to make sure and understand we don't just spit out crap to the patient. We need to make sure that they're getting it. We need to see that light bulb go on, and that it's got to be an active communication. They've got to get the message in the right way. We need to make sure that they have an informed consent, that they know what we're doing, they know the risks, they know the benefits. The decision needs to be shared. It's both us and the patient. So the patient, I tell the patient, I am here just to educate you. I can't sell anything, but I can sure as crap teach you all about everything down to the molecular structure if you want to know it. And we can go from there, and you can decide to do or to not do something given the information I give you. So I'm not selling to them, I'm educating them. This is awesome, this is great, but here's some of the downsides. So we really like to really make that a shared decision. I like it to be the patient's decision. Make sure that you communicate very clearly. Make sure that you are ethical in your decision. And when I say ethical, you guys, do not talk to patients out of your profits. Like, don't make money making and selling part of your patient treatment. You treat that patient to the best of your ability, exactly what they need, and the money will come on the back end. So don't make money your priority, make the patient your priority, and believe me, on the back end, you will get more referrals and you'll have happier patients. It will take you further than in a buck in one day.
They're going to become your long-term patients.
Yeah.
This is where, when I look at it, I have a lot of patients that have been with me for over 10 years now. And that's what patients want. They want to be able to understand why they're getting something, what you are together going to help change, and walk through that process and not feel like they're being sold something and constantly being sold. If you can really, and this is why I really stress the educational aspect, if you can help the patient understand why they've gotten to the state that they're at, and then these are the things that we can do, starting with this, there's no right answer. You take a car in and you haven't taken care of it in 10 years, you're going to have to do something. You're going to start somewhere. The one thing you're probably going to do is probably change the oil so that the engine doesn't die on you. And then the next thing, maybe the brakes and the tires. But, you're going to do things slowly and within hopefully the budget that the patient can afford. And, you're going to make that change. And that's what patients want is they're willing to spend the money. And I think I try to teach my consultants, don't try and bite off the whole cookie at one time. That's not what is necessary. What is necessary is for the patient to understand we're here to help them along this journey of anti-aging. Everybody wants to age gracefully. Well, aging gracefully will take part when we're doing it in the proper way where they're buying into why you're doing something. Okay? Okay, transparency, realistic expectation, of course, clear as we're talking about communicating the risks, the limitations, what the real outcomes are going to be. I always tell my patients, anything I do, it's expected to shrink or to settle in, and it's going to probably be about a 10-20% less than where you think it's going to be, especially threads. When I do threads, it's tight as hell when they walk out, and they expect it to be like that. I'm like, there is no such thing as this being this tight. That is unusual. And I tell patients, my analogy is, this is like you bought a brand new pair of skinny jeans and you're putting it on for the first time. It is tight. But as you live in it, it's going to stretch out and it's going to form fit to you, and it's going to look beautiful and natural. And so it appeases both aspects of it, but it's setting the realistic expectations of what you can do. And of course, try to not promote unrealistic beauty standards. That is going to definitely negatively impact a patient's mental health. Don't point out things, oh, you need to do that. You need to do that. There are certain things that I will point out because I think it really will change the way they look, especially temples. I will point out temples because I think that is one of those things that patients are not educated well enough about, that it really makes such a huge
Well, that'll be the
difference.
next big trend. We've gone from jaw to lips to chin. Now we're going to probably go to temples.
The area that I've always focused on.
And one of the companies is getting an FDA approval for the gunshot technique on the temple.
Oh, nice. Geeks. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that another time.
So, how we want to promote wellness and mental well-being, we want to make sure that we screen our patients carefully. Like I mentioned, watch out for those red flags. If somebody has a lot of red flags, don't take them.
Yeah.
Once you take them as your patient, you're stuck. And that could be a real problem. So listen at that consult, you guys. Really, really see if you want to take them on, because they're harder to fire. Make sure we educate our patients well. Make sure we look at the whole patient. We are that patient's primary care provider, whether we want to be or not. And when I say that, I mean, I know we do aesthetics. A lot of us have come from other backgrounds in acute care and family medicine, things like that. We see our patients more often than other practitioners. So we need to be very aware of other subtle nuances going on, i.e. lumps, bumps, skin discolorations, eyes getting large. There's a lot of things that we see that are more on the family practice or internal medicine route that we catch in aesthetic medicine simply because we have the time to talk to our patient and we see them more often than their primary care provider does. So stay holistic. Make sure that we support the resources they have, if they have family and friends around, and make sure we keep that communication open with them. We don't want to judge them, but like Gideon said, we get a lot of patients who come, and you guys probably do too. They come and they feel comfortable with us because we're not judging them.
Yep.
And they just want to hang out, and they respect what we have to say because we're very open and honest with them.
Yeah. Mental well-being, establishing an empathetic environment, collaborative care. This is a team. This is why we're doing it together. Multidisciplinary training, definitely so. I think understanding, the mental aspects of it. It would be nice in this field to actually get lectures a little bit on how to deal with difficult patients, and maybe something we'll talk about in the future.
Yeah.
Difficult patients, how to talk to the more timid patients, how to, there's a ton of different types of aspects to this aspect, to mental health and really the balance of the aesthetic procedures. Post-treatment follow-ups, making sure that you do follow up on that, because sometimes you are doing things that are much more aggressive, that they are going to look ugly, like really ugly for a couple of days. And you really need to sometimes talk with those, because those are the patients that can slip and fall into like, oh my God, you made me even uglier.
Right.
And
just say you're going to be all jacked up for a few days if I ever use needles.
Making sure you set expectations. Expectations are huge in our field. I always say, if I'm injecting like radius on cheeks, you're going to look like Maleficent. And they laugh, and then they'll come back and say, it wasn't that bad, but I kind of liked it when it was a little bit more. Or, yeah, I'm glad it settled down to where it's at right now. So, I think setting expectations, as I said, post-treatment follow-ups are important. Ethical marketing and communication are key. I think it's very huge. You don't want to have, we're always going to try and show our best results, but you also have to tell the patient when they're coming in, that is a best result. That is a patient who actually has been doing it multiple times or did a lot of treatments. And, I think that balance of it, so that they're in that right mindset of what the expectation should be, instead of, I'm going to just do 1 or 2 syringes and I'm going to get that result that person had 10 syringes of. You have to have that right, reasonable expectation. And if it doesn't align and you don't feel it's going to be healthy for them, tell them, say no. It's okay to say no. I tell my patients, you know what, probably not the best to do that. If you want to, put your money down as a down payment, and then when you put in and save up enough money to really make the effect that I think that you're looking for, then we'll come back in and do it all at one time to really give you that result that you're looking for. Because you don't want to overpromise, underdeliver. You really, really would rather underpromise and overdeliver on that.
Absolutely. Every day. Yeah, we see filtered and photoshopped on Instagram all the time and social media. And it's not an ethical way to present treatments in patients. So you just have to look for that. Just have a discerning eye, look for that. And if you are a provider, just don't play into this game.
Yep.
You know, we need to stay very real and
Stay
based.
real. I mean, if you guys are getting stuff done, you know, show your picture, show the reality of it. You know, we all, of course, want to look like that filtered
Yeah,
Photoshop.
I want to look like that one.
But ultimately, reality is reality, and if you're showing real pictures, I mean, I think it's important to show that. I mean, I think we should do like a nice one. You can say, this is me before, this is me after getting something, but this is me filtered after getting something, and this is really me getting something done. You know, I think that would actually be kind of cool, because it brings to light the reality of the situation. You know, everything on magazines and out there, you know, influencers are all photoshopped up the wazoo. I mean, how many of you guys have seen those people that have like take 1,000 pictures just to choose that one picture with the one right lighting that was the perfect aspect of it? I personally don't have time, but people do, and I'm just like, wow.
I know people take pictures for like, and they're like, "Is this okay?" I'm like, "I don't care. It's more to life than a bad picture. Whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. So, oh wow, it hit 6 o'clock. All right.
Wow. Okay. So we are okay. So we know we talk a lot, but hopefully this kind of helped a little bit with kind of going through the mental health issues. And I don't say mental health in a bad way. I want to say like just the mental state that our patients are in.
Yeah.
Is it good? Is it bad? What have they been through? What makes them what they are? Everybody carries something with them. Everybody carries wounds from the past. We all do. And it's our job to help kind of figure that out and help them along the way so it can help them feel better about themselves. So that's basically what we really wanted to share tonight.
Yep.
Was that I think number one, we take time with our patients. Number two, we're listening to our patients. We're being ethical and honest with them, and we're being careful not to hurt their self-confidence and self-esteem. But on the flip side, let them know gently how we can help them along.
Yeah, really let them know that you can make differences for them. You know, really the reality of what we can improve, how we can help them with what they're picking on themselves on, that is, are holding themselves from actually blossoming into who they could and should be. You know, there is this balance. You know, when you look good, you feel good, and you're going to accomplish whatever you want to do in life. And that's the power you guys have out there. So make sure you use it to its best of your ability. So,
thank you for joining us tonight,
everybody.
everybody. We appreciate your comments. Thank you so much.
I know. We'll see you at the next AI Live next month.
I know. It was up there.
April 2nd.
Oh, you're
5
good.
p.m. Pacific time.
April 2nd. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. We'll see you.